Good afternoon, this is News in English from the Syrian television in Damaskus. President Bashar al-Assad visited this morning the Martyrs Monument on Qassyoun mountain on the 39th anniversary of October Liberation War. Upon his arrival to the monument, President al-Assad was welcomed by Vice Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Armed Forces and Minister of Defense General Fahd al-Freij, Chief of Staff of the Army and Armed Forces General Ali Abdullah Ayoub. His Excellency was also welcomed by Assistant General Secretary of the PATH Arab Socialist Party, Vice Presidents, Assistant Regional Secretary of the PATH Party, Deputy Chairman of the Progressive National Front, People's Assembly Speaker, Prime Minister, Cabinet Ministers and senior army officers and state and party officials. Afterwards, His Excellency headed to the Martyrs Monument, laid a wreath of flowers there.
دائرة يا مؤمن دائرة يا مؤمن
Before His Excellency's departure, President al-Assad talked with some martyrs' children about the sublime meanings of the heroic needs of the homeland's martyrs over Syria's modern history. On the occasion of October Liberation War, Prime Minister al-Halaqi inaugurated Syrian radio station and al-Talaqi satellite channel. Al-Halaqi toured the headquarters of the channel located at the building of the Syrian radio and television at Umayyad Square. He was accompanied by the Minister of Information Dr. Amran Zobi and a number of journalists and media persons. The Prime Minister underlined that this new media establishments will contribute to the efforts of other national media in confronting the information war targeting Syria and its people. He said that the name of the channel, which means gathering, reflects the solidarity among the Syrians and strengthens the national spirit. The Syrian Arab TV broadcast the opening ceremony of these two media establishments. Dr. al-Halaqi also met the Syrian media, recalling the glorious days of October War, which carries with it the meanings of sacrifice and steadfastness. Prime Minister al-Halaqi said that the memories of October War of Liberation are the incentive to us with what our courageous forces achieve of victories in eliminating the terrorists. The Prime Minister pointed out that launching of the electronic management in the Ministry of Information Syria Times newspaper, Talaqi satellite channel, Syrian radio channel, and the Syrian Media Center in Moscow constitute additions to the mobility of distinctive media which fight the battle of truth that is not less important than the struggle of our armed forces. Al-Halaqi clarified that the national media fight its battle despite targeting its cadres and preventing the broadcast of Syrian satellite channels on Arabsat and Nilesat satellites. He stressed that our media work reached to every honest person that wants to see and hear the truth. The Prime Minister said that the government is working to meet the needs of people and to preserve the national security and economy. The Syrian Arab Armed Forces units carried out a qualitative operation in al-Hame area in Damaskus countryside, killing many terrorists and confiscating large quantity of weapons of various kinds.
The Syrian Arab Army's units confiscated machine guns, automatic rifles, sniper rifles, mortar cannons, and explosive devices in qualitative operations against terrorists in Al-Hame and Jamraya in Damaskus countryside. An official source said that an army unit stormed the hideout of terrorists, killing and injuring many of them. The source said that a unit of the armed forces discovered an 82mm mortar cannon, 55 mortar shells, and 4 sniper rifles in Al-Burj quarter, and 300 explosive devices of various weights in 2 houses that the terrorists were using for manufacturing explosive devices near Ammar bin Yasser Mosque in Al-Hame in Damaskus countryside. The source added that a unit of the armed forces seized a car loaded with explosive devices, and the field hospital was discovered in the area, adding that the engineering units dismantled 15 explosive devices, each of which weighed 50 kilograms, planted by terrorists in Al-Hame town. The source indicated that the armed forces killed a number of terrorists, among them Abd Khassi, Azzeddin Khassi, Tamer Kraker, and Muhammad Abu Tayyib Murabi, who is a Jordanian national in Al-Hame town. A unit of the armed forces discovered 13 stolen cars with fake plates, with an 82mm mortar cannon, 35 anti-tank missiles, and 50 mortar shells inside in Jamraya town in Damaskus countryside. The source said that 50 mortar shells, 7 automatic rifles, and 7 up-to-date communication devices that terrorists were using for contacting hostile media outlets were seized.
The Syrian Arab Armed Forces rescued 8 civilians who had been kidnapped by the armed terrorist groups in Qassyoun in Damaskus countryside. An official source said that an army unit released the civilians Tamam Darwish al-Hussein, Muhammad Mahmoud al-Rawas, and Muhammad Wasim Abdeh. The source added that another unit of the armed forces carried out a qualitative operation in which it released the civilians Ramzi Murad and Basil Hamoud, who were kidnapped by an armed terrorist group 5 days ago. Army units also released the kidnapped Bassam Muhammad Hassan, Ibrahim Ali Zanuba, and Abdullah Hassan Murad in the same area. Moving to Aleppo, the Syrian Arab Army units have continued pursuing remains of the armed terrorist groups in Aleppo city and its countryside by carrying out qualitative operations targeting their hideouts in Al-Firdos and Al-Aruba Club in Bustan al-Basha and Sheikh Khudr areas. The armed forces destroyed 3 cars equipped with machine guns. In another operation, a unit of the army destroyed 2 cars that the terrorists were using after mounting machine guns on them, in addition to other vehicles the militants used for transport, killing all of the terrorists inside them. 4 Turkish terrorists were also killed in Al-Ashrat area in Bustan al-Qasr neighborhood. In Sheikh Said area, and in cooperation with the locals, a unit of the army clashed with an armed terrorist group and killed a number of them. Another unit of the armed forces destroyed 6 cars equipped with Dushka machine guns and killed all tourists in them in al-Qulum area on the road leading to the airport. The Syrian Army units have carried out an operation targeting a hideout used by the armed terrorist groups as a den to carry out terrorist acts against the citizens in al-Bredej village in al-Ghab area in Hama countryside. The armed forces destroyed the terrorist hideout and killed a number of them. On the other side, the competent authorities seized a huge quantity of machine guns, rifles, and satellite communication equipment in hideouts used by the armed terrorist groups in a Salamiya area in Hama northern countryside. Moreover, a satellite communication device and 25 Turkish-made military beds and huge quantities of medical equipment were also seized. A unit of the Syrian army destroyed a Dushka-equipped car with the terrorists inside it in Tel Dahab town in Al-Hula area in Homs countryside. In Masakin al-Shurta area, a terrorist group targeted houses with mortar shells, killing 3 people. In Homs, our armed forces continued to pursue and crack down remains of the mercenary terrorist groups. In response to appeals by the locals, a unit of the armed forces clashed with an armed terrorist group that was intimidating the citizens in Al-Tibi village in Al-Taldaw in Al-Hula area in Homs countryside, killing a number of its members. Another unit clashed with an armed terrorist group in their Balbe orchards in Homs countryside, killing and wounding a huge number of them. Moreover, a unit of the armed forces destroyed a hideout used by the armed terrorist groups in Al-Assad countryside, killing a number of them. Three days after the terrorist explosions, the UN Security Council condemned in the strongest terms the heinous attacks in Aleppo, which caused dozens of deaths and over 100 civilians injured, the responsibility of which was claimed by Jabhat al-Nusra group that is affiliated to Al-Qaeda. In a statement, the Security Council members expressed their deep sympathy and sincere condolences to the family of the victims of these criminal acts and the people of Syria. Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki stressed that some countries which thought they can bring to power in Syria a regime that serves their interests by smuggling weapons into the country have acknowledged that using weapons and force could not achieve that. Regarding the Iraqi initiative, al-Maliki added in a special interview on Russia Today TV station that using force cannot solve the Syrian crisis and only the peaceful solution and dialogue can realize that. Maliki said that executing this initiative or any other initiative requires that all countries realize that arms cannot help in reaching a solution for the crisis, and that only putting an end for sending weapons to Syria can help in executing these initiatives. Regarding the Iraqi initiative, al-Maliki said that executing this initiative or any other initiative requires that all countries realize that arms cannot help in reaching a solution for the Syrian crisis and that only putting an end for sending weapons to Syria can help in executing these initiatives. Al-Maliki also underlined that the countries which insist on sending arms to Syria must keep in mind the consequences that would reflect on them. The Turkish short newspaper said that the government of the Development and Justice Party has to take a neutral stand on the events in Syria instead of supporting the groups of so-called armed opposition and providing them with weapons.
The Turkish short newspaper said that Turkey was inevitably affected by the events in Syria, so it was very necessary for it to adopt new policies and be aware that instigating others will bring nothing but more damages. The Turkish government was wrong at seeing the whole region through a sectarian vision. The paper added that the Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan was carrying out the policies of the US in Syria and the region, bearing the political and military burden of this policy. The paper clarified that it had information from a reliable source saying that Turkey was the side which sent the mortars to the armed groups in Syria, referring that the information affirms that the government of Erdogan's wrong policy was behind the falling of the mortar in the town that claimed the lives of 5 Turks.
And now over to our economic news with Vani after the break. For more news and details about Syria and the region, you can visit our website www.syriaonline.sy. 39th anniversary of October Liberation War. Upon his arrival to the monument, President al-Assad was welcomed by Vice Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Armed Forces and Minister of Defense General Fahd al-Freer, Chief of Staff of the Army and Armed Forces, General Ali Abdullah Ayoub. His Excellency was also welcomed by Assistant General Good afternoon, this is News in English from the Syrian Art Television in Damascus. President Bashar al-Assad visited this morning the Martyrs Monument on Qassyoun mountain on the General Secretary of the Ba'ath Arab Socialist Party, Vice Presidents, Assistant Regional Secretary of the Ba'ath Party, Deputy Chairman of the Progressive National Front, People's Assembly Speaker, Prime Minister, Cabinet Ministers and senior army officers and state and party officials. Afterwards, His Excellency headed to the Martyrs Monument, laid a wreath of flowers there.